All right. We are so excited. Welcome to Good News in Parks, everybody. And do you know what today is? I mean, besides time for Good News in Parks,
it's our anniversary.
It's our anniversary. That's right. Exactly. 1 year ago, we launched this show based on what we were hearing from you in the field about a need to feel connected, to share stories and experiences, and to understand that we were not going it alone. Y'all wanted to share what you're doing out there, stepping up, delivering services with less resources, helping communities to thrive. So happy anniversary to you all. We are so thrilled you continue to visit with us and be a part of this amazing experience, and we could not do it without you. So with that, don't you absolutely love the opening quotes today? Both were submitted by Priscilla Zepeda, and they're both great, but she noted that the second one, we aren't just out here with each other, we're out here for each other, is exemplified by this program. And we totally agree. We are all here for each other, and you are the driving force that keep the show going. So to celebrate our anniversary, we only want one thing. After the show, we want each and every one of you to tell a colleague, somebody who isn't yet watching, about the show and get them to register so we can expand this reach and the great exchanges and keep sharing all the good news in parks. So there's some great learning to be discovered today, and we're anxious to get to it. Remember to ask your questions using the Q&A box. We know you're going to have questions for this great panel. And first, I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed co-host, Jody Adams. She's going to introduce our group and share some national news. Hello, Jody. Let's get this anniversary show on the road.
Oh my gosh, Anne-Marie, can you believe it? It's been a year. I just can't believe it. It's blown by.
Time flies.
Oh my gosh, and we have so many great alumni of the Good News in Park show that we're going to celebrate at NRPA. I cannot wait. But here we go. Here's the introduction of this fabulous best of the best panel that we have today. Kitty Frazier, Parks and Recreation Manager, Kingsport, Tennessee, Parks and Recreation Department, and past director of Jonesboro, Tennessee. Also, Kitty is a fellow member of the American Academy of Park and Recreation Administration. She served on the NRPA Revenue Resource Management School of Board of Regents. Woo, that was quite a title there. Kitty
Quite a job.
served as a capper visitor of the Commission of Accreditation for Parks and Recreation Agency, and past president, Tennessee Recreation and Park Association. Kitty, welcome to the show. We've been wanting you on for a long time.
Good to see you, Jody. My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Dana Kesler, Director, Louisville, Kentucky Metro Parks and Recreation Department. He has held executive leadership positions with Lee County Parks and Recreation, City of Parkland, Point Verdes, Florida, Moon Township, Pennsylvania, Kingsland, Georgia, and Athens, Ohio. He now serves on the first tee of Louisville Executive Committee, serves on the Olmsted. We all know Olmsted, our father of the planning and Parks and Rec, Olmsted Parks Conservatory, and then serves on the Parkland of Floyd, Fork, and Historical Locust Grove organizations. I want to make sure I get that right. And then finally, just want to say congratulations, Dana. U.S. Cycling has recognized Dana for the National Cyclocross event held in Louisville with the Louisville Sports Commission. Way to go, Dana. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Jody. It's going to be fun.
You betcha. Jim Teixeira. Oh, Jim, I'm sorry about that if I did butcher that, but he's director of City of Santa Clara, California Parks and Recreation Department. He has held executive leadership roles with California Park and Recreation Departments of City of Mountain View, City of Martinez, City of Richmond, past president of California Park and Recreation Society, District 3. Through Jim's leadership, the Santa Clara Department is recognized as a best practices with Playcore as a national demonstration site in the area of inclusion, physical activity, and nature-based development for children's play and playgrounds. And this is so important research. So Jim, thank you for doing this. And then finally, Jim holds 2 master's degrees in public administration and in Masters in Divinity, where he worked with faith-based youth, serving organizations for 13 years. Jim, so happy to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Okay, everyone, it's good news, national news. Here we go. A lot going on. It's our month. It's July Parks and Recreation Month. And what's exciting about this, the NRPA now has out the toolkit for all of you, free of charge. Please tap into it on this toolkit to help you celebrate your department with your community and statewide. You will get, with the free toolkit at nrpa.org, you will get Facebook, Twitter, and poster downloads. You will get fact sheets and message lines for media, and you will also get outreach communication that you can use with any group or with the media context. So please tap into that. And then also the NRPA Parks and Recreation Salary Survey is out. I don't know about you, I use this all the time when I was a director, and I can just tell you right now, at every level of your organization, this salary discussion of salaries, benefits, and policies will really help your full department and all your leadership team. And then finally, I just want to mention the National Association of Park Foundations. Next week, they're hosting all week lunch and learn activities that I'm talking with some of the best in the field about park foundation development and what's out there and who you can tap into. Go to National Association of Park Foundations.org and tap into that resource. All right, now on to our panelists. And Anne-Marie, here we go. First question, two parts. Let's talk about your department program and services. Our audience would like to know what senior, outdoor, adventure, or innovative programming are you working, our programs are working for your department now. Number two, part two, how are you making the determination of what program services to offer in person or virtually? Kitty, let's start out with you on this question.
All right, my pleasure to start. Well, first of all, I would say that the state of Tennessee and Kingsport has followed suit with that is open for business. So we are not doing anything virtually unless it's something we would have normally done, such as maybe esports or social media kind of thing. So we are back to business, full service, full capacity, all participation, all facilities and all programs. So we're excited about that. And so far that is working well for us, and we're happy to be able to provide that. So there is no virtual on our end at the moment. So as far as something unique for us, a few years ago, we realized that a lot of people were using our parks, but maybe they weren't educated about the different parks in Kingsport, what we had to offer, where they were, what they offered in the way of services. So we developed what was called Passport to Parks. And I don't know if Anne-Marie can pull this up for you or not, but there's a slide that will show you what that was. It was a booklet that had information. We gave it to school kids. We gave it out to restaurants in different places where people were challenged to go to different parks, find a medallion, do some things in the parks. Most of it was either physically oriented or socially or environmentally oriented as far as the questions. We had 2 different booklet levels for different age groups for so they would be appropriate as far as the questions and challenges. And if you did those challenges, you were eligible for some prizes. It was sponsored through some local businesses. And we saw a tremendous response to this and a way to get people into parks maybe they would have never visited before. And so from that, we went into the pandemic when I'm sure everyone saw a great use of their parks and increased use of most of the areas. Okay, you can take that slide down, Emery. And so what did we do then? Well, we still had people in the parks, but we decided the one way was to take the information to them. So we started what was called Travel Trainer, where we went into the neighborhoods and took exercise classes and programs. It might have been in a parking lot, it might have been in the grass, it might have been wherever, since our facilities were closed. And we kept that movement going of get into your parks, do something physically related to help your family. And then since then, we've gone into another phase of it where we're using more social media to do a holiday hunt, shall we're calling it. So each holiday, we put some sort of character out into the parks. It was a leprechaun for St. Patrick's Day. Unfortunately, he wasn't very lucky because he got stolen several times. And we just recently did an eagle for 4th of July. So every day we will move the character around and we have clues on where to find it. And you go take a picture, a selfie of it, submit that to our Facebook or our Twitter. Then you are again eligible for some incentives and some prizes, but finding the character has been kind of fun for everyone. And then the next phase will be something a little bit more active again. We're going to work with a local coalition and we're going to do what's called a yoga tour. So when it cools off a little bit later in the summer or in the fall, we'll do yoga in the parks and me moving them in different parks. All this is free, of course, which makes it easy for people to participate. And I think the first outing is going to be called Yoga Brew because it's going to be in our downtown park next to a brewery. I'm not really sure how good the yoga is going to be after the brew, but it'll be fun for everyone. So we think this has helped us to educate people about our parks, as well as to emphasize the importance and to show a variety of what we have in our community, get people in places they might not have visited before that's outside of their normal realm. So we're excited about our park program and getting people engaged.
Kitty, from talking to you too, I know you're so fired up to be open again. And oh my gosh, you guys were so prepared and so ready, even talking with your office and everything, you all were ready to go. Way to go and way to pull it off.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We're excited. It's great to be back.
You betcha. Dana, join in.
Thanks. All right, Jody. Well, we've got a couple really, I think, interesting programs that we're doing. Obviously, where we've been, and we're open now, I should say that, we're open across the board. And so one of the things that we know happened is these kids spent so much time out of school that, they've spent the last year just not being able to keep up. Even though there was a virtual learning, it was somewhat successful. So we've actually combined with our school district to do kind of a hybrid camp during the summer. So not only are they doing learning, they're doing the typical camp and recreation activities they would do, but they're combining that. So they're getting some of that school work in person at our community centers, but also having fun while they're doing it. So pretty unique. Another great program is really unique to us is our ECHO program, which is engaging children outdoors. It started in Jefferson Memorial Forest, which is a 6,000 acre municipal forest, the largest one in the US, right here in Louisville.
Wow.
And that great staff put together this ECHO program because it's wonderful, but it's, obviously it's pretty far out. So what they did is they actually got a grant from NRPA for a vehicle and a trailer to take this outdoor program into our urban areas and engage those children with outdoor activities and different things that they might experience in the forest or in a wooded area, but taking those to the urban areas of Louisville. So it's a great program. It's really the kicking off point for our new outdoor learning center. We were lucky enough that our council and mayor put in money to kick off that outdoor center of $2.5 million to get it off the ground. It'll be probably around 12 or 13 when it's finished, but great partners. And we're really excited that the Engaging Children Outdoors is actually going to be putting this outdoor learning center in West Louisville in an urban area.
Timing is everything, right, Dana?
It is.
And I know you've been really working hard on all this. Talking with you about a year ago, I know you had the vision and your citizens had the vision. Way to follow through. Great job, Dana. Congrats. Thanks. All right, Jim, bring us home on this one.
All right, so I just want to, kind of echo that, we have several different types of programs that we're trying to innovate and really trying to transition from the remote to the in-person and making sure that we're we're adhering to protocols, but also pivoting very quickly to adapt to whatever the changes are. And so that really is, I think, inspiring our staff. On the Summer of Service, which is an outdoor program for teens, that way they can do teen service. And so whether it's out at the community garden, our city cemetery, or at the Youth Activity Center, we're able to, capture those youth that want to still provide service, but in a safe and healthy way and outdoors. Also, we've had to do a lot of co-promotion of different types of programs rather than say, seniors, you get your senior programs at the senior center indoors when they weren't able to do that. So we basically started to say, we have a good number, 60+% of our seniors actually do lap swimming. So we've got the International Swim Center, and looking at ways of, when you have 25 lanes of water, you can run a lot of people through lap swimming very efficiently, safely, and with less staff. So we basically co-promote our outdoor activity programs for seniors, and it gives them a different way of looking at our programs rather than saying that they have to access a senior center indoors where they may not feel comfortable. Also, continuous improvement, that's where the innovation comes from. So early on, we set up health and safety officers for each of our program areas. And so with monthly check-ins and updates, we're able to kind of bring the cemetery, the parks, as well as the recreation divisions all together to talk about the issues and things that are happening in their specific locations, and then making sure that we have a consistent approach, back out in communication to the community. So that really helped for improvement of our internal communication. I know everybody's very familiar, and we're on it right now with remote meetings, but really trying to make sure that we are connecting with our community through remote meetings, not putting necessarily new park development on hold, waiting for in-person meetings, but making sure that we're doing the outreach and communication through our new residential developers in the city. We have a huge growth that's happening, a lot of infill projects and renovation, rehabilitation going on in our community. So we've tried to use the remote platforms as much as we can with our 4 commissions that we have, as well as with our new residential developers, and then making sure that our community can participate well in that. And I think, like Kitty was saying, California, we're back and open. We're a little more of on the conservative side when it came to the health and safety protocols, but starting June 15th, our blueprint for reopening went away, and so we're pretty much open for all types of programs and business, with the one message of get out there and get vaccinated, as well as making sure that we're protecting each other. And so there still is some mask mandate that we do have. So there you go.
Jim, fantastic. It's so amazing to hear you all talk today, a year later, of when we first did the show and people were struggling to get ready to do virtual. What is so exciting is you're talking about it being open. And Jim, it's just like the other day when I was getting a hold of you, you were out in the field with your staff. And I know these other 2 do the same thing. That is what it's all about. We love people and we love being out there. So again, Jim, great job. And thank you so much. And Anne-Marie, it's now handed back to you for our first poll.
Yeah, let's do that. We're interested to know what all of you out in the audience are thinking about virtual programming right now, as everybody is either open or starting to open. So that's what our poll question is about. We'd like to know how much of your programming will you continue to offer virtually for the foreseeable future. We're going to continue all virtual programs, a majority of our virtual programs, some virtual programs, but not a majority, or we don't plan to continue virtual programming at all, and we'll transition back to in-person as soon as possible, or you have already transitioned back because you are open. That would be the same choice. So let us know. It's kind of an interesting question. It's great as everybody's coming back, but I know as we talk about how many people don't have a 10-minute walk to a local park. Virtual may be a way to reach those folks and be able to include them in some activities. So I know some folks are thinking about continuing some of that virtual programming, but not everything as we transition back to live. So just want to know how you guys think. We've got a couple more answers being typed, so we're going to give you guys about 5 more seconds, and we'll end the poll in 2, 1, and let's share the results. So it looks like most of you, 58%, are saying you'll keep a few virtual programs, but not a majority. And there's quite a great amount also that don't plan to get back. No surprise, there's really hardly anybody out there that's going to continue all of them. I think it's great, you know, if you're staffed to do that, but certainly as we get back to in-person gatherings and meetings, that's not a surprise that, you know, some folks are not continuing that. So as always, thank you for your input on our poll questions. We use those to shape future shows. So we really appreciate you taking the time to vote. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Jody.
Thank you. Question number 2, panelists, here we go. Please share with the audience what alternative revenue streams your department is collecting or using to support programs and facility operations. And we've had this somewhat of a question answered over the last few months, but now again, we're at a different time of year later. So let's go ahead, and Dana, would you start us off with this?
Sure. We didn't really have a ton of alternative revenues. We've been pretty revenue centered or equal. So not a ton of new things. The only thing we probably had during COVID, and I don't think it makes us unique, was the increase in the esports. So that really was a big one. It was a revenue source and a program that we could continue. One of the things we really noticed is we were lucky enough to partner with our sports commission, because obviously as a municipality, we can't offer cash prizes. So when we were doing, it was fun. People were having a good time. But when all of a sudden the sports commission stepped in and offered actual cash prizes, the participation went through the roof on it. So it really was a nice, not a giant source of revenue, but obviously a great program and a lot of fun. And we will continue the esports. And we actually, the last one we did was in a downtown hotel. They hosted it and spread everybody out, you know, all over their big ballroom. So it was a lot of fun.
That is fantastic. That's a, public-private partnership right there. What a great expansion of an innovative system of including your private industry. Wonderful, great job. And also the Louisville Sports Commission, I just need to insert this. They are great. I've known them over the years, actually visited them to actually develop our sports commission. So again, dynamic group. If you have a need for a sports commission, get a hold of Dana, because he knows it inside and out. So thank you all. Great, Dana. Okay, Jim, please give a answer on this one.
All right, alternative revenue stream. So a lot of this has to do with life cycle cost and looking at our budget. So unfortunately, you know, we had to reduce our budget by 24%, $5.4 million. And we actually hit our target in the last year of being able to do that. Our biggest costs are people and labor costs, and then followed by utilities. So when we're looking at, you know, who are we and what are we going to do about this? You know, we look at, and we're expanding, we're bringing on new parks on board. So when we look at on our park side, we say to ourselves, you know, how do we decrease cost over time? What one little thing, if we do today, over the next 5, 10, 20, 40 years, will reduce our costs, but we can still provide those services to the public. It may not seem like a big thing, but let me explain it just a little bit. You know, we have Quimby Act and Mitigation Fee Act in the state of California, which allows us to have proportional dedication of parkland. But then when you bring those parks on board, which is great, you shift that cost onto the developer, but what about the maintenance cost? So we have pretty high labor costs in California and in Santa Clara. So we look at the life cycle, we say, you know what, we will negotiate with our developers to create that maintenance agreement, either by development agreement or maintenance agreement. And so here's a couple of examples with Irvine Company out at Santa Clara Square. We have 2 new parks and a trail, Redwood Trail and Creekside Park and Meadow Park. And basically they're going to maintain those parks, which are public parks, public dedicated acres. Those will be maintained for 40 years. So if you look at the cost of, how big of a deal is that, Jim? It's basically at $80,000 for, those acres of land times 40 years, that's $3.2 million. So over time, that one little decision, that one little effort, and it was not really a little effort, but a big effort, certainly with the collaboration, public-private partnership with the Irvine Company, is that the city then doesn't have that burden on the general fund of 3.2 million. Another example is Lawrence Station area plan, specific plan where we've brought on board a new playground, and there'll be about 3 acres of parkland out there. In that one, we worked with the developers to create a community facility district. Again, looking at shifting the burden of the cost from the general fund to them over time. And that will actually be in perpetuity. So then with that under our belt, then we started looking at Patrick Henry Drive and the Tasman East area. And we said to the developers, hey, you're already developing this park right next to your new residential complex. And by the way, you know, it's public parkland. And it's the incremental cost for you to maintain that extra acre that's sitting next to you. You already got landscapers. They're already going to be doing that work. So here's our development maintenance agreement. And so they'll be maintaining the park right next to them. So we just then keep doing that one little thing over and over again. And pretty soon you can see that over the next 40 years, I may not be here in 40 years, but the benefit of that certainly will be for the new residents that are coming into the city of Santa Clara. So we just, and then one other thing, just a side note too, is we also look at making sure that the parks that we're, sometimes people say, well, you know, only put in the minimal amount of this and that, but sometimes you need the high-end features to make sure that, you know, the park itself can sustain the use, vandalism, et cetera. You kind of bomb-proof them. So it may cost a little bit on the front end, but you definitely need to put that in. We also look at sustainability measures. Right now we're going through the, you know, what is it, year 3 or 4 of our worst drought on the West Coast here. So we have to look at sustainability and reductions in water use. So we're making sure that we're dual plumbing facilities, making sure that we're using reclaimed water, we're using LEDs, and working with our municipal utility, Silicon Valley Power, to make sure that we're putting in electric vehicle charging stations in parking lots or out on the street next to our parks. So again, that's one little thing that if we do over time is going to have big positive benefits that we can reap over and over and over again. And again, collaborating with our municipal utility, our private developers, as well as our community. So it makes it sustainable.
You know, Jim, again, folks, listen to these directors loud and clear. Public-private partnerships. That's what it's all about. That's where we're going on a lot of this. We've been there, but I've never seen our field so engaged more than ever. And the private industry wants to help. They want to be there. Again, these are our gathering places in America. Kitty, please, let's go. Let's bring this one home, please.
Okay. Well, you know, I think most of us probably that are participating today would all say that we're in the recovery mode. I mean, you know, we're all trying to recover from last year. We're trying to recoup revenues that we lost and trying to sustain what we have. So that is a whole new game plan for everybody, I think, moving forward. But we're seeing the turnaround here in Kingsport, and I think everybody else will slowly as we go forward. But there's a difference when you're trying to go back to what you had and also increase your revenue. I don't know that we do anything really unique in Kingsport. We are a relatively small area. We're only population of about 50,000 plus. So for those that may be able to, you know, compare to that, that means you have to really rely on that partnership you were talking about, Jody, those local resources, community groups, clubs, friends, organizations that we have to support the operations, the programs, the volunteers. We have a small amount of staffing and staff resources. So we truly are integrated into our community on a daily basis of how we become a part of that community and they're part of us. That helps sustain us, to help us survive through a pandemic and moving forward as we create new ways to get revenue moving back in the right direction. I will say one thing that Kingsport's extremely proud of is we may not do a lot in the way unique revenue for our operational side, but we're extremely successful when it comes to grants and private partnerships. So just in the last couple of years, even with pandemics and governments all closing down different ways, we've gotten over $3 million in grants for development for my parks program.
Oh my
Anticipating
God.
about $5 million to be announced in the next couple of months for some new programs for a small town, that is huge change for us to be able to help make a big difference for those people that live here in Kingsport. So we're going forward and hoping for the best, and hoping that our businesses continue to thrive, because when they thrive, then our revenues also thrive.
You know, Kitty, that was one of the key reasons we wanted you on there. You've been an expert in this grant, not only research, but making sure that you put in the right information, but you're a great resource for departments out there. And you've just really knocked it out acquiring grants over the years. And again, that's why your department's so great too, is you are very diversified on how you do your revenue. So again, congratulations, great job out there. And your staff, great job to your staff. Wonderful.
Absolutely.
All right, back to you, Anne Marie. It's time for more poll questions.
Absolutely. Let's do another poll question. So we would like to know from each of you, we're hearing a lot on the surveys about improvements and things that you're doing. And it seems like there's a lot of different improvements that are sort of taking place right now across parks across America. And so we wanted to get some more information on that, just to kind of get a pulse of where everybody's at. So that's what the next poll question is about. We would like to know, in regards to park improvements for the next year, what is it that you guys are focusing on? And this one should be a multiple choice, so you can select as many as are appropriate. Is it plants and landscaping, beautifying the space with nature? Is it around stormwater capture? Increasing family gathering spaces, and that can be picnic areas, you know, just places anywhere, beaches, you know, whatever. Every park is a little bit different, but just thinking about places for families to be together. Is it improving and adding playgrounds for younger kids? Parking and access, that's another thing that we're hearing as more and more people are using the parks. Parking and access is growing in you know, importance to be able to accommodate cars and bikes, and, you know, safety for walkers and all the ways different people get to the parks. Increasing programming. We talked a little bit about programming earlier on the show. Are you adding more programs to get people involved and get people at the park? Is it opening a new park? You know, that's happening in some spaces too, as land is being acquired and people are doing assessments on where, you know, parks could benefit folks that don't have one within walking distance. Some folks are adding new parks. So is that what it is? Or is it something else? You know, obviously we can't come up with all the answers and all the things that you guys are doing. So if it's something else, check that box. And then if you would, in the Q&A box, let us know what that is. We'd like to know, you know, what kind of other projects and things that you're doing to improve your park. So a lot of different answers. It's interesting. I still see some voting going on, so we'll give you a couple of more minutes, but it's really, really widespread. I can kind of see as you guys vote sort of how it changes the dynamic of the answers. And I would say everything's getting at least a vote. Some things more than others, but very, very interesting. So we're going to give you 5 more seconds. So go ahead and click your answers if you have not yet. And these are so important to us because, again, we do future shows and future content based on what it is that you guys are interested in and talking about. So these polls are super important. So let's go ahead and end that and take a look. Share the results with you. So it looks like improving and adding playgrounds has a slight margin. Increasing programming is a close second behind that. Thinking about family gathering spaces, obviously, as intergenerational play and recreation is more and more important. You know, families have been recreating together for the past 18 months. And so that's a good thing that that we intend to, that we see, you know, continuing. Plants and landscaping also, you know, thinking about adding natural beauty for reflection and just beautifying the spaces. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to take a quick look here at the Q&A. Pam says she's updating some old facilities at their parks.
Oh, good.
Yeah, fabulous. And then Heidi says she checked other because Mecklenburg County is focusing on revitalizing older parks that have not received updates in years. That's great, Heidi. I mean, that's a wonderful thing to be doing. And it's an easy thing to, you know, not think about, you know, as we consider to continue to launch parks and, you know, going back and reassessing them and making sure that everything is updated and safe and relevant is super important. So kudos on that. And thank you guys very much for that. We have one more quick poll question for you here before we go back to the questions. I'm going to launch that one now. Get to it here. And this one is in regards to staffing. So in regards to staffing, we want to know, are you not currently hiring? You are hiring, but filling positions is a challenge. And that can be due to a lot of things: lack of applicants, the wrong skill set, people looking for seasonal work, whatever the reason. If you've got positions open, but you're having a hard time filling them, check that box. Or you're hiring and you are filling the positions. Great if that's happening. I know there's a lot of challenges that folks out there are facing with that. So just take a minute to vote on this one. We know there's a lot of expansion going on as parks are, reopening. And so I'll give you a couple more minutes. And while you guys are voting on that one, I'm going to read one more response on the last question from Christina. She said she met this morning to get a quote on changing a grass field that is a makeshift soccer field to a multi-use for 3 different sport courts: basketball, mini soccer, and pickleball. Well, that's cool. So taking that one space and making it, inviting to people with a lot of varied interests. That's awesome, Christina. All right, so it looks like our voting has slowed to a crawl. So we're going to go ahead and end this one and share the results with you. And not surprisingly, the majority are hiring, but not filling the positions. That is such a crazy thing right now. There's so many open positions across, not just Park and Rec, but a variety of different industries that folks are having a hard time filling. So not surprising there. Not really 10% of folks are not hiring at all. So a lot of expansion of services, and as we reopen, bringing people back on. So thank you so much. Again, we really appreciate all the time that you guys put into our polls. And again, we take them very seriously. The group that needs to, decide, and with Jody and I, on sort of what the content is for next shows. These polls and the surveys that you guys take at the end are absolutely critical in that. So we greatly appreciate you guys taking the time to do it. Jody, let's go back to you for another question.
Well, you said it, Anne-Marie, our production crew and team, we look at these, and not only that, every one of these questions is from you, because this show is about you.
Absolutely.
It's about our panelists training and teaching and helping everyone. It's just phenomenal. Thank you so much for all your help out there.
Hey,
All
Jody,
right,
I want to put out one more quick thing Christina added, because this is awesome. She said that doing that with the 3 fields is also going to give more chances for people with different abilities to enjoy, as they're all going to have flat surfaces. So that's awesome.
Wow.
Love that.
Oh, keep those comments coming, because again, this is all about sharing. This is your show. Please share. All right, question 3. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Yep.
Talk about current and future improvements your department will be making. And again, there's no wrong or right answer on this. We're going to start with you, Jim. And Jim, you kind of alluded about engagement with your citizens, but let's go a little bit further into this question with you.
Sure. This is probably one of the, over the last 5-6 years of my 12 years here in the city of Santa Clara, where we've made, I think, the most progress and difference. First of all, is what one little thing can we do differently that's going to have a big positive effect. To do that was figure out a funding source and a revenue source, because that really is what makes the improvements happen, whether they're rehabilitation or new facilities. So I alluded a little bit to that before. Well, we've got the Quimby Act, which does allow for rehabilitation of existing playgrounds, parks, and those sorts of things, provided you're actually expanding the service level. So we've got about $150 million in aged infrastructure. And it kind of is sad, when you look at it. It's ramps and clamps and old sand-based, non-accessible, very little play value. And then we said, you know what, we're gonna, besides just looking at the playground, we want to make sure that our park design standards are research-based. So again, looking at that, we said, so what can we do and how can we, fund this? So we've started to look at our oldest parks and playgrounds, focus on that the age and grade or condition of the facility, and then start using those funds to rehabilitate them and provide new accessible playground space. And that really brings the community along board because, you know, they're the ones that are invested in having their children play on these in these play spaces. So we were able to do that, updating park standards, as I mentioned. And then also we have 5 new specific plans. They're areas of the city that are pegged for, you know, growth, and we have about 30,000 new residents that will be coming into those areas of the city, and bringing on board about 2.6 to 3 acres per 1,000 new residents of parkland. So they can't necessarily deliver all that in parkland, so they pay a fee to mitigate the impact. So we have both, you know, new parks with the new design standards that are research-based, that are inclusive, that include, you know, nature-based play, as well as keeping, what do we call it, sustainable, drought-tolerant planting. Again, I mentioned the dual plumbing, making sure that we have use of reclaimed water so that we can actually do water recharge. And all of that is just part of, you know, it's baked in as part of the design. And then on the back end of it, we already mentioned, is then the maintenance of that. How do you do that? So, and one other thing was working with foundations. So Magical Bridge Foundation was really instrumental in Santa Clara County at getting the county to free up some of their funding for inclusive playgrounds. So we are rehabilitating an old ramp and clamp, sand, you know, metal, stone playground. It's about an acre, and expanding it to about an acre in size to be all inclusive. So we've got county funding as well as their foundation funding. They're doing corporate and individual fundraising, and then we're bringing in city funding. So as a kind of three-legged stool there, we're able to then fund an expanded inclusive playground for more kids in the community. Oh, and it's also such that different ages, you know, can play together as well. So it's a lot of good community spacing.
You know, a lot of intergenerational, but you know, the bottom line is, Jim, you have been such a great steward of research-based development. And again, folks, listen to Jim on this. Feel free, Santa Clara, they've got so many models out there to look at. I just respect what you're doing so much, Jim. Thank you so much for sharing, because again, our field needs this. Kitty, it's your turn.
All right. This is my favorite question so far. I will say that, because even though Kingsport's a small town, we have really big ideas. And one of the most recent is related to reconverting industry areas. Our town is known as a light industry town, but unfortunately, like many other parts of the country, we've seen closures of factories and businesses shutting down and moving overseas. Thankfully, we still have a very stable economy and world headquarters of the Eastman Chemical Company, which is great for our economy. But we've also been able to find ways to take the properties that were left behind from the factory closures and repurpose them. So for example, when a major bookbinding company in the heart of our downtown closed, they donated 25 to 30 acres to the city. We redeveloped that site into a thriving commercial area. The area includes an indoor-outdoor farmers market, actually using one of the original warehouses from the bookbinding company, an adjacent carousel that has hand-carved horses, a downtown park, restaurants, the Chamber of Commerce, grocery stores, you name it. It's all been put in this new area in the middle of downtown that was a factory. Other things in our town similar would be a Walmart property that's currently being converted to residential, and a fabric mill that was torn down and allowed for the expansion of another company nearby. So we're constantly trying to figure out how to reconnect and reconvert those areas as they change. Anne-Marie, if you'll show the slide I gave, this shows our latest project, which is so exciting. The drone pictures is a little bit deceiving because it looks like it's flat, but I will tell you this is all very different levels and multi-leveled flat areas, hilltops, and ridges. But our development started in this area, which was a brick making company, and they gave about 150 acres to us. It is a brownfield site. We used the first part to develop, you'll see on the left, a fourplex complex of ball fields. When we first started this project, which I named Brickyard Park, I thought I'd lost my mind because it had over several 80-foot borrow pits from where the company had used them for their industry. And I thought there's no way it's going to work, but it turned out being a beautiful site with great views of the downtown, and everybody loves playing ball there. Last year, we added a Miracle Park. We're the only Miracle Park within 150 miles of the area. And we have a playground, as you can see there, and pavilion and stuff like that. This is, a huge asset to our regional development. The phase that we're currently working on, you'll see up in the top corner, it shows a skate park, which is really not right there, but it's in that area. We're going to put in $1 million skate park that we're out to bid for right now. Next year, we're already funded to add beside that a bike pump track and some bicycle skills areas. And then concurrent with that, we have an RFP that's underway to create residential, about 200 homes that will be adjacent to the skate park area and all this park development. And across the street from that is going to be an open lawn, green space for festivals and events, and eventually maybe an amphitheater. And then by the end of the summer, I anticipate getting about another 50 acres of the hillside you see on the very far left, which was also a brownfield development area where there was some ash put in from another company next door, and that's being given to us by a paper company. And that will be mountain bike trails, bicycle walking trails, some areas like that. Of course, all this happens in compliance with new roads and sidewalks and the residential connections and new types of infrastructure that will go to support this, as well as a $3 million pedestrian bridge that will cross over a railroad track, because we are still an industry town. And one of the things that makes this so valuable for Kingsport is all of this is within a half a mile of our downtown. So we know it's going to revitalize the downtown. It'll be a huge economic boost for the city. And then as that continues, we hope to expand our Miracle Park with another ball field and a soccer field, some zip lines. And just to also mention, that entire Miracle Park was made through donations of about $2.5 million from our community. So we are so excited about this development. It is a game changer for us. And for the next 5 or 6 years, we're going to be seeing a whole new look to Kingsport as far as our downtown, our parks, and the livability there.
Oh my gosh, is that not beautiful? Wow, what a development. Kitty, it really is amazing the usage that a Miracle Field will get. And you put that inclusive and that accessible playground there. We did that, and I got to tell you, it was always busy. And it was so good to see the interaction of the community. So oh my gosh, this park cannot wait to follow this development. So folks, again, you're doing it right out there. Way to go, Kitty. All right, Dana, it's your turn. Let's finish up on this question.
Sure, thanks, Jody. And much like Kitty and Jim, we're doing the public-private partnership as well with some park development that'll also have the commercial, it'll also have the real estate. As we know, that's the direction we're all, heading down this road. But one of the more exciting things for us as we're looking and moving forward, through this time that we've been, is our equity in our parks. So we actually spent the last 4 months with a group of volunteers who went out and made assessments of all 120 parks. And so we're right now in that phase of then categorizing it and comparing it with the education levels, income levels, racial makeup, all those things, and tying those together, and also to show, what's in the last 20 years, what parks have we made investments in, what ones have we not made investments in. So a part of that that's really exciting is we are able to add an equity officer within the department. So we're really excited to get a new person on board. We have that position or that department in all of our metro government. We wanted one specifically for us to address our programming, our parks, our internal operations, right? We want the makeup of our leadership in our parks to match what our community looks like. So we're really excited. And then we did get funded to work with Jane Miller and our Parks Foundation to do a Parks for All. So that's even taken it further to do another level of that. When we make these park investments, is it being done equitably through the community? We're still obviously doing some new playgrounds and some really fun projects now, but we're really excited the future holds for capital development. And again, be able to tell that data story as Jim does, do that research, tell the story, get that funding.
Well, I'll tell you what, you are on the leading edge of all this. And with equity is going to be our next special edition of the show. And Anne Marie will share that in just a little bit. We have some of the best, but you are a absolute leader in this, Dana. And I know how committed you are on this. We talked about it, but this is fantastic that you have taken this on. This is going to be great for your community. Louisville's always been there, but you're even going to another level. All right. This is our favorite time because you've got to have great staff to mow on as top departments. So Anne Marie, it's your time.
All right. This is actually as Jody said, one of our favorite areas of the show. We call it Good News in Parks About Great People. And this is something that we ask all of our guests to share some good news about somebody in their department that is going above and beyond. Obviously, none of us are an island. We cannot do it alone. And so we like to give our panelists the opportunity to talk about somebody on their team and the great contributions they're making. So let's go ahead and get this started. Dana, why don't you kick us off?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'm excited to announce Margaret Brosco today. She's our Assistant Director of Administration and Revenue. But Margaret goes above and beyond. She actually spent the pandemic with the crisis we had here in Louisville, where she was the main contact for all of our protest groups. And so, it takes a special person to do that. She spent, I don't think she had a day off in about 9 months. She is fantastic. Also during this, as we talked about, it's hard to find staff in the poll and getting jobs filled. Margaret spends her weekends either lifeguarding in a pool or working at one of our golf courses. So Margaret really goes above and beyond. She's passionate about parks, not just Louisville parks. She's actually visited, I think, all but 2 national parks. So she's a true park lover and a park person, and I'm just so proud to have her part of my team.
That is awesome. Absolutely. And Margaret, I'm going to have to get your Cliff Notes because that's one of my bucket lists is to visit all the national parks. So that is very cool and a very neat thing to do. And thank you for everything you're doing. I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about when you say, like dealing with the protesters. I mean, Dana, that's something that we've heard from a lot of the people that watch the show is that they've had team members that have had to deal with things through the pandemic that they normally don't deal with. And, it can be a challenge to deal with things like that, or, people who don't want to wear masks or all the different challenges that people face. So kudos, Margaret, and thanks for doing the great job and all the wonderful things that you do. All right, let's kick it over to Jim.
All right, well, it's my privilege. I work with a great team of folks. And so Kim Castro is our recreation manager for City of Santa Clara. I want to give a big shout out to her and also her leadership and her team. She pivoted from in-person regular recreation type programming to everything remote. We had also a reduction in over 100 as needed staff, which was a big shock to our ability to deliver services to the community. But took all that in stride, and we over last year she was able to work with our emergency operations and basically 321 days of activation at our Santa Clara Senior Center, 33 weeks out at the Salvation Army on a weekly basis delivering food. And then also last summer, we had 4 school sites. So all of that was taken on by Kim and her team. And she was able to, in just a couple weeks' time, put together some just-in-time training videos that basically made sure that all of our staff were healthy, safe, and very aware of their surroundings and the folks that we were trying to serve. And so, it's a real tribute to her that, the creativity and ability to pivot, that's just one of her hallmarks, is she's able to, read a situation and then bring the right folks to bear on and making sure that it's seamless and continues to operate. Another aspect was the community outreach, switching immediately to remotely connecting with our community and making sure that we had virtual programming and community outreach as we continued different development projects. So again, it's a tribute to Kim. I also want to mention that she worked with the Santa Clara University, the capstone programs, to bring in additional volunteer labor to do some of our research-based stuff. So it's just making sure that the seniors, as they're completing up their senior year of college, university, that they had capstone projects, and she was able to identify safe routes to parks, as well as some of our playground assessments, and so real tribute to Kim Castro. So I thank her a lot.
That is awesome. And what an amazing example of all the different things and services. That's something that we hear from folks who aren't in Park and Rec that watch our show. They're just amazed at all the things that you guys do, and especially all the new services that have been, offered since the pandemic. So great example of that, Kim. And thank you for everything that you do. We are honored to be able to honor you as part of Good News in Parks. All right, Kitty, I love this photo. I am a big fan of Packard. So why don't you tell us about Rod?
This is Rod Jamal. He is the manager of Allendale Mansion, which you see in the background. We call it our White House of Kingsport because it does sort of look like that. It's a 25-acre estate that was donated that has 2 ponds, an amphitheater, 2 pavilions, a entertainment barn, a barn that was converted to a pavilion, some gazebos, great public space, and it's a wonderful place for parties, events, and weddings. And Rod manages this wonderful estate. That's not his car. That was a car show that was in front of the facility. And not only does he do a great job of managing the estate and dealing with every bridezilla you could ever imagine has probably come through there, and he could tell you war stories that would just make you laugh and cry at the same time. But the thing that makes Rod especially valuable to us is his attitude about everything. Allendale is managed by a staff of 2, Rod and one other person, but yet he's the first one that when something happens, you need something that says, how can I help? He's the first one to volunteer. He's the one that's leading the team and always participating in everything that we have. So, we all love to work with people that have an attitude of gratitude. And that's the way Rod works. And he's also the kind of guy that you can never underestimate. So I'll use an example that a few years ago, he came to me and said, hey, I found a hotel that's doing renovation and they've got a 7-foot chandelier. What do you think about hanging it in the hayloft of our entertainment barn? Sure, why not? And he was right. It worked out. Everybody loves it. It makes it unique. So I am very thankful for him. He's been with us 20 years and he came from the private sector, and he represents the best of our community and the soul of our Parks and Recreation Department.
That's awesome. And what an innovator. That's a cool idea about that chandelier, and what a beautiful facility. It's just gorgeous. So awesome. Thank you. And congratulations to you, Rod. And with that, we will go on to our next segment. And we are really excited to take a look see if we have any questions from our audience. Take a quick look here. It looks like James Bruce is curious if you're ever concerned about, and this goes back to the first question, if your private developers can't afford development and maintenance agreements, how would you cover the cost burden of maintenance? Any thoughts on that?
So one of the things that's, you look for all the different cost items in the life cycle costs. So again, how do you reduce the cost in the first place, not just shift it or burden somebody else and not take care of it. So again, by creating design standards that basically put the burden on us to figure out the right or best way to do it. One of those things when we look at our utility costs, whether it's lighting, electric, like I mentioned, or water usage, over time, those are very significant. Those are the third largest cost, and significantly during a drought. So part of that is to make sure that you set up your park in a way that you can reap the benefits now and into the future. We also took out areas of our parks that used to be turf and grass, and we widened our areas that have mulch and are out of, basically like a golf course, that are out of play areas. And so by doing that, again, it reduces costs. So you look at all the different ways and the best practices, and then you start implementing that. And anyway, that's how we do it.
Makes perfect sense. I also want to expand on a question that was asked earlier directly to Kitty, but I've heard from all of you guys with these great ideas. I mean, you all have these great creative ideas. So I'd love to hear from all of you. How do you come up with them? Is it your staff? Is it friends groups, crowdsourcing? What do you guys do to come up with all these innovative ideas and services?
Well, I would say, since the question was first posed to me, that it's always collaborative, and it may depend on the circumstance for us. I mean, the yoga in the park, a group that did yoga came to us and said, what do you think about it? So we figured out a way to do it. The Passport to Parks program was sort of through our businesses downtown and a marketing group. And then, of course, you've got great staff in Parks and Recreation. They're always trying to find ways to reach out of the box and do something grand with very little money. And so I think it's always that collaborative moment that really works the best for us anyway. It's not one idea, it's everyone's ideas. And then you take advantage of the moment. If somebody comes with something, we very seldom ever say no. We say, let's talk about it. So you got to reach out to the people, and then when they come to you, try to figure out how to shake hands with them.
Great. Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Well, let me just chime in. One thing on the innovation, and just I kind of want to go back to what Jim was, even the last question, is, one of the innovative ways that we were working through park development that really, it really was a kind of a shock to us, is we put some of our parks into Audubon sanctuary development. And it was amazing. Not only were we helping the environment, but we really found out that sometimes we did not need to mow some of the things we were mowing, and we really should let them go back in. One of our PGA courses that we manage put it into an Audubon golf course management at the highest level. Wow, that made a big difference on our budget. But that really, the purpose was to get back to that environmentally and conservation focus, and it really helped us out. So I just kind of want to throw that in, because it's out there, that national certification on Audubon development within our systems.
Right, absolutely.
I can't underemphasize also the value of training to the staff. So, you got it, since one of the highest costs obviously is labor, and to the person who was asking that question, is making sure that you devote, whether it's 10%, 5%, whatever, is that you really do have to invest in your staff and allow them to get the training that they need. And
that's right.
Shout out to our deputy director for parks, who emphasizes training among his staff, whether it's the qualified applicator, the certified pool operator, whatever, is to make sure that we have staff who can operate our facilities intelligently and as efficiently and effectively as possible. If you don't invest in the staff, and that's the first line that you cut, I would just say I think it's a big mistake. So we try to preserve that. There's not much there, but we do try to make sure that the staff do get the training that they need to come up with then those ideas that then we then turn around and implement. So I think it's really important to make sure that we not cut the training and do it on whatever way, manner, shape, or form we can.
Jim, we didn't even practice this, but the bottom line is, you other two, do you have any comments on team building and that staff training? Because that has been a question that has come up on our surveys, even the last couple of 3 shows. Could you make any comments on that, on, keeping that team up and keeping them informed? I really appreciate, Jim, you bringing this up.
Dana, I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's great. And I agree, Jim, you've got to invest in your people. We're so excited that we actually got an increase in our budget for training this year. Because we were able to share that information with our council and the mayor to show them the impact of having those trainings, and how we're developing staff, and how we're hopefully creating future leaders within the department. So we're really excited. I hope to be bringing a ton of people to Nashville to NRPA this year.
All right, good for you.
Well, and I think too, sometimes we have to also remember it's not about that outside training. Sometimes it's also what we do internally that becomes a team through its own way. I know everyone probably experienced what I did last year. A lot of my staff went home. They had to teach their children or take care of their children or whatever. So your team was in a whole different quadrant here. And the way you looked at that and trying to manage our business at the same time. But one of the things we started doing was saying, you know, we've lost some people from that had great institutional knowledge, or people aren't around and nobody knows how to do anything because they're not here today. So we started a lot of that internal cross training and developing manuals and how-tos so that we wouldn't be caught like that again. And through that, people started recognizing, oh, you know, your job's a lot harder than I thought it was, or I didn't know how to do that. And oh, that's what you do. I didn't really understand that. So sometimes it's that just mixing and matching things up and allowing people to understand each other that becomes that cohesive piece that becomes a team. Walking in someone else's shoes, as the old phrase go. And so that's been very helpful for us, that in a very bad situation with COVID, we were able to actually kind of put people together to work in situations that made them a better team now that we're back open on a regular basis. So sometimes it's those little things you don't realize are going to help you develop that team.
Absolutely too. Great comments, you guys. We're going to launch now a really new segment for us that we just started based on what we were hearing from the surveys. We like sharing the good news of what's happening out in the audience. We get some really great stories. And so we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit. We had to share the story of what Metro East Park and Rec is doing to serve their communities. They serve Madison and St. Clair counties in Illinois, and they're using ArcGIS to grow, improve, and maintain a public system of interconnecting parks and trails maps throughout their district. Using is putting it mildly. They are owning this with some incredible mapping services. You know that saying there's an app for that? Well, for Metro East, they got a map for that. I mean, if you live there and you want to know where the closest dog park is, there's a map for that. If you want to know where current and future bike infrastructure is, there's a map for that. If you want to see what parks are within a 10-minute walk of you, there is a map for that. Want to find a trail? Yep. There's a map of those too. It is absolutely amazing. There's even interactive maps so that every community in the 2 counties can have its own park and trail map, and even copy the URL and embed the map in their local community website. So kudos Metro East. You're not only making it easy for people to find services and where they are, but you guys can see also where they, where they're still needed and the work that's been done all at a glance. So we just think that is some amazing work and wanted to share it with everybody. The other amazing share we have is our next show. Oh my gosh. Okay, you guys have been asking for this on the surveys for a long time. And I got to give a shout out to Jody because she has put together an amazing panel for our next special edition, which is going to be Thursday, July 22nd. That's just a couple weeks away. So we have 2 episodes this month. It is all about leading with equity, and there is just an incredible panel of folks that are going to help us and talk through that. We've got Dr. Autumn Saxon-Ross, who is the Vice President of Education and Chief Equity Officer for NRPA. Tracy Crawford, you probably remember Tracy. She was on our season 1 show, just an amazing advocate for special recreation, had some great tips that she shared with us. So I'm sure she is going to be a dynamic guest on this show as well. And then Dr. Sonia Shaw, who's the Senior Park Planner and Equity Specialist for McAdams, and has a lot of other great credentials as well. This is an amazing panel. And boy, if you have ever joined us for a show, this is the one to be to, because everybody is looking at how to lead with equity. It is at the top of everybody's mind right now. And these 3 women are going to be some incredible panelists. So please join us. There is that scan if you want to take the survey for today's show early. As always, there will be an email that'll come out probably in the next 24 hours or so with that link. But we know a lot of you are excited about getting those CEUs. So you're welcome to scan that and take the survey right now if you'd like. I'll leave this up for a couple of more minutes for you. And boy, super show. Thank you to our guest. Jody, final words for us today.
Well, Kitty said it just from the very beginning, it's all about heart and soul. And these three departments have deep heart and soul for our field, for their citizens, for the passion of the field. That's why we wanted to bring you three together, but you're also the sheroes and heroes of our field, and cannot thank you enough for being with us, you guys. Thank you for being your authentic self and sharing your experience. Great job. Thank you. And Anne-Marie, thank you. Great job today.
You
Can I
too.
add one last thing? So
Yes.
this is my chance to plug Tennessee. So if you have not registered for NRPA, you should do so. And Nashville's going to be fabulous. We are going to adapt with the COVID and all this stuff as much as we can. If you can't make it to NRPA, then come to Nashville some other time. Music City special. And as they say in the South, y'all come.
Love it.
Awesome. Thank you all. And we will see you in a couple of weeks on that equity special. Go to playcore.com/season2 to register if you have not already. And remember our anniversary ask. Everybody, please, after this call, go and tell somebody that doesn't watch this show, and let's get them on board for the next one. We cannot wait to see you. Have a great couple weeks, guys. And thank you again to our guests.
Thank you all.